Alex here. Hi. SteelStar.
Hello.
How'd you get that name?
Oh, uh, Honestly, that name came out of when I was in QA and someone needed to use my name for some purpose. I think it was Tolero needed my name for something. And so I literally came up with it in about 10 seconds. It never had any particular meaning behind it, other than, I like mechanical things, Warforged and the like. Uh, so, yeah, not a huge amount of story behind it, more born out of necessity than anything else.
If we were to have rocket bears, how would they work?
Oh, if we were to have rocket bears, what I would probably do is use our wonderful hat-based technology to put rockets on the back of some of our existing bears and allow them to accompany you on quests, where rocket bears are, of course, an important tool in completing whatever quest you're in.
So we're not talking about a rocket bear raid boss, necessarily.
Oh, see, I always thought of the rocket bears as friendly. If you saw that whiteboard, there used to be a picture I drew of an actual rocket bear on there. He was the counterpart to the evil twin bear you see at the bottom of the screen. So I always thought of the rocket bears as a fairly friendly race. If this were one of the many ridiculous D&D worlds that I've ended up running in campaigns, rocket bears would be probably a friendly allied race and possibly a playable race, which I know I would regret immediately.
What is a bear deficer?
A bear deficer is a druid in bear form wielding a rune arm. This is not something we let you do in DDO, despite the fact that I attempted to convince, bribe, and otherwise coerce Vesuvium way back in the day into not having rune arms break druidic oath. It didn't work. But if I had my way, you would be able to be a druid slash artificer, wield a rune arm while in bear form, be the best techno bear you can be.
And you, if I understand, I remember on Lemania you've come up with some kind of approximation of a bear deficer, is that correct?
Yeah, I've done a couple of weird combinations to get it to work where I, force it to think I'm not breaking druidic oath. Done a few times internally. I think that was the 200th picture of the week. I had a bear deficer that I'd kind of mocked together with some goggles and a rune arm. I don't know. I think bears would be highly improved by technology.
We talked a little bit about this before, but for our anniversary live stream here, it's worth mentioning again. How did you get on the DDO team? What's your story leading up to working for DDO?
So, I sort of came into game development through a video game development college program, Champlain College's video game development program. After I graduated from there, I was looking for just game development jobs in general. This would have been probably about the summer of 2010. When I found a QA position at Turbine, I applied for it, interviewed for it, and was able to get that, which is how I got into the DDO team 5.5 years ago at this point. I was on the QA team for about 8 months total, and a little bit before the big push to start getting people for Menace to the Underdark, they started looking for developers to help ramp up, and I applied for that position and got it. So I've been doing development on the DDO team probably just about 5 years.
Nice, nice. Do you remember what you first did?
The very first things that I did were the environment deco in the House Caneth Manufactory and the gameplay in the pre-raid landscape for the Master Artificer. So it's House Caneth stuff, which is perfectly fine by me because that's some of my favorite stuff in DDO is Artificers and House Caneth and all that.
So how did you get recently you've been able to do raids and do a whole bunch of stuff. How does that progression sort of work within a team structure like that?
Just in how did I come to be doing those sorts of things?
Right.
So I started out on the team as a content designer in general. Again, making things like the Artificer pre-raid and content, building the levels that you play. Over time, I started also, trying to build more interesting things into some of my dungeons that required, more advanced scripting, interesting bosses, that sort of thing. And through that, I sort of got a more broad skill base within as a designer in general, but also within DDo's tools. And as time went on, eventually the team started asking for my help in things like creating the iconics around Shadowfell Conspiracy and the new enhancement system. And so I switched on to doing systems work for a time. And once that big push to get some of those systems initiatives out for Shadowfell Conspiracy was done, at that point I had a really broad skill set both on the content side of DDO and the systems side of DDO. And so since then I have about every other update switched between doing heavy content focus and heavy systems focus, as well as doing some of our more systems heavy content, such as the Thunderholm raids or the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Do you have sort of a quest or a raid or something that maybe, you know, not like I want you to pick which child is best, but which child's best?
I'm going to split this between two things. One of my two is definitely Fire in the Thunder Peaks, the Twin Dragons raid. This was a raid that I sort of had an idea for and wanted to really see if I could make it work in the context of DDO. You know, the concept of having, you know, twin bosses that play off each other has been done in some other places, but it had not precisely been done in DDO in the way that I wanted to do it. And ultimately I was really happy with how that raid turned out in terms of needing to work together and to plan appropriately. Plus you get to fight two red dragons at the same time, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I think that's the only place in the game, certainly the only place in the game where you fight two named dragons.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, simultaneously.
You know, there are some other quests where with multiple dragons, but I think that's one of the only times you can fight two dragons simultaneously. And then my other, for sort of different reasons, has to be Temple of Elemental Evil. All in all, I worked on Temple of Elemental Evil for, I think, about 7 months, which is huge for a single DDO update, single piece of content even. And a lot of that time was spent being buried in the original module, taking a look at the maps, taking a look at the encounters, trying to figure out how to adapt really this massive module into DDO with its, you know, sort of more linear experience, a very party-based experience where people could split the party. You know, it's fast motion mechanics as opposed to turn-based. The fact that we wanted to bring in some of the elements of WotC's Elemental Evil Forgotten Realms campaign as well. So it was a really challenging piece of content to sort of wrap my head around, but you know, while the end product wasn't perfect, I think it's still one of my favorite pieces. And, you know, I was just reading an article the other day that now, almost a year later, was taking a look at it with some fresh eyes, and they really appreciated how closely they thought it fit to the original, the feel of the original module, and that's really what I was going for in that. So that made me really happy.
Yeah. Back to Fire on Thunder Peak, the Double Dragon raid. Double Dragons. Is that like an NES arcade reference? Or is
It
that
sort
just
of was.
coincidence?
For a long time internally, the name of that quest was Double Dragons. Because, you know, why not?
Yeah, right. Because totally why not? Yeah. So our next one's going to have to be called Bad Dudes.
Bad Dudes, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So. All right. Well, I don't know. Anything else you want to add here?
Nothing in particular. You know, as I said, I've been working on this game for more than half of its lifespan at this point, and, you know, invested a lot of creative energy and time and, you know, extra hours where I could, and I'm really glad that, you know, people have had the opportunity to play these adventures and use these kind of cool things that just been putting together for this long. So thank you to everybody that's been playing. You guys are great.
Thank you very much, SteelStar.
Yeah, thank
really
you.
appreciate you joining us. All right, before I